Hello everyone, Maurice and welcome to Things to Invest. We talk about investing, finance, professional development. For today's video, times only. So today's video is going to be a little bit more conceptual again, per my video on how to invest that I posted earlier this week. Also want to post another video on just about like how we utilize time in our life, which time is actually the most precious commodity that we all commonly share as human beings. I know money is important in terms of sustaining our livelihood, but I realize that time is something that, based on my life experience so far, is not something that people cherishes as much as money. So I want to talk about it today by quantifying how much time do we spend on our day-to-day life with respect to our daily occurrences or daily cadence with respect to like going to school, going to work, taking bathroom breaks, eating, and stuff like that, and quantifying that into specific buckets. And then by doing that, to flush out, after adjusting for all of our daily occurrences, how much time do we actually use to channel towards our life mission or our passion interest, if you may. So stay tuned, stick around, let's make some money. All right, so I'm a bit of a nerd, to be honest with you. I don't know, maybe I'm just naturally curious about learning new things and structuralizing things, quantifying things, and I love digging into complexity and I love digging into convoluted ideas and then try to synthesize them into, easily digestible messages, right? And I think life is such a complex entity, a complex atmosphere that we are in it, right? Whether it's a simulations or rather are we, in our full conscious or what is it? I don't know, right? But I like to quantify our lives, right? How do we allocate our time and how do we utilize them wisely? Or structurally, or some people just do it unstructurally. I've built like kind of like a financial model, if you I wouldn't even call it like a model, but like more of a breakdown of all the adjustments that we have in life, and I try to compartmentalize each of the specific things that we do. So it's a relatively rough draft, so bear with me with respect to the analysis that we have here. Okay, the key drivers of this model is really have a couple of things, right? We have the life expectancies, which is, assuming on an average in the US, right? We typically live until 85 years old. If you quantify that with 365 days, we typically have, if you live until 85 years old, you have about like 31,000 days on Earth, which, is not a big number if you think about it that way, right? If you compartmentalize it a little bit further by breaking it down more granular level, right? And I want to break it down a little bit more. So here's what I have here, okay? And bear with me if this is like too convoluted or too much on the page. I literally just did this out of like a spur of moment, if you may. But I just want to like provide this to you guys to maybe use this, for yourself. Like maybe take a snapshot of this picture and then see how that applies to your day-to-day life, right? So firstly, if you look at on this side here, right, we have basically the essentials, right? We have the school. Most of us typically go to school, right? We go to work, we eat, we use bathroom, which some people go to bathroom maybe 6 times a day. Like myself, I drink a lot of water, so I typically use the bathroom quite often. Some people commute, like myself. I'm in New York City, so taking the subway, taking the bus, walking is something that we do on a day-to-day basis. I even incorporate sickness. But these are like the high level buckets that we have, right? So let's go through this, right? So with respect to our life, right? Typically, we sleep about 1/3 of our life away. So if you quantify that into more of a bucket style, right? And these are structural buckets, right? Firstly, is the sleep assumptions, right? So we typically sleep 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and I'm just gonna take an average. I sleep actually around like 8 hours per day, so I'm gonna use that as an average. Again, if you have a different number, feel free to change the numbers here, right? And with respect to like 24 hours a day, right? If you assume like 33% of your lifetime, which is 8 divided by 24, you technically sleep about like 10,000 days away. And if you think about that, it's 28 years of your life that you just sleep away if you live until 85 years old, right? So you have the adjusted days of 20,000 days on Earth, which is technically 57 years, right? And then now you talk about your work assumptions, right? Let's assume you work from anywhere from like 21 years old to 65. I actually started work when I was like 15, but I wouldn't really count work. I count as more like volunteering experience, like at the church or helping out with my dad's store back in Hong Kong back in the day. But if you quantify that on more of an average, like 21 years old is like you graduate college, you start working, right? And that's like 44 years, right? And contingent on you working about 10 hours per day, working 5 days per week. I know some people work like 7 days a week, like myself. I'm a workaholic, 7 days a week. That's my thing. But most people work like 5 days, or they typically like take 2 days off out of the week, right? And with 48 work weeks, and I'm counting like the holiday, I'm actually adjusting for it. That's like basically 6,618 days. So that's about like 32% of the entirety of the adjusted time, right? We're not talking about the entirety of the 31,000 days. We talk about like the 20,000 days. So that's 32% of the entirety of it, right? So now talk about assumptions for school. We typically go to school from like pre-K to college, undergrads. I know some people have like masters, PhD. For me, I have a graduate degrees as well. So, but I think on typical spectrum, that's about like 17 years of actual schooling, right? From pre-K all the way to college, undergrads. So that's about like 17 years, right? And contingent on you like basically working in school, or not working in school, I would say more like studying, right? And I quantify this as like a work per day, but like putting in work in school is kind of like working anyways. That if you calculate that by 10 hours per day, 5 days per week, which typically people don't really go to Saturday or Sunday school, I think that's more like you just do it because you need to do some supplementary work to maybe get yourself up to speed on in schoolwork, or maybe you just want to get better. That you might do like 6 days, but 7 days is unlikely. So I do like a average like 5 on a more of a weighted perspective on the overall spectrum for the entirety of the globe. Some people are not as unfortunate as we are that get to like go to school, right? You know, especially in a third world country, that's a privilege to be in schooling, right? So that's about like 2,131 days. And that's about 10% of your adjusted life, right? Now we talk about eating, right? Eating, we eat about like 300. I mean, obviously, we eat every single day. I don't think I ever go, in a day without eating ever, right? And let me adjust the screen a little bit so you guys can see it better. 365 days, we typically have like three meals per day. I typically eat about like 3 to 5 meals per day. I mean, eating a Snicker bar, or not a Snicker bar, like more of a granola bar. We do that sometimes, right? I don't really count that as a meal, but if you talk about like a core meal, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's 3 meals, right? And you typically maybe invest in like an hour per meal, right? I know some dinners might go for like 2 hours. Some lunch you might just have like a 15 minutes lunch break, but I'm gonna quantify that into just 1 hour. You actually spend a lot of time on eating if you think about it that way. That's 28% of your adjusted life after you adjust for sleep, at like close to about 6,000 hours of just eating. Not 6,000 hours, 6,000 days. Which is pretty crazy, right? If you think about it that way, right? Now look at the bathroom. I know some people like myself go to the bathroom like 6 times a day, right? But I'm gonna adjust that, a little bit more. I don't want to be too crazy. I don't know people really go to the bathroom 6 times a day. I think that's just probably a me thing. I know some people don't even go to the bathroom the whole entire day, like truck drivers or like bus drivers. They're really good at holding their pee or whatever, right? And if you adjust that by going to the bathroom every single day, right, and you do like maybe 15 minutes per session. It's funny that I'm using saying session. That's about 9% of your adjusted life, right? If you quantify it that way, right? And feel free to adjust the numbers however you would like, right? And then you talk about commuting. Like for me, I commute a lot, right? Especially back in the day when I was working on Wall Street. I was always like working really late. I was always like taking an Uber or taking a taxi. I was always like taking the subway, walking to work in my suit and tie, like all drenched up most of the time, especially during summer, especially around these time of the year. That you typically commute a lot of your time away, 12% of it. And then sick days, right? We get sick. That's just a part of life. Some people get more severely sick, right? That's why I quantify that into, well, not quantify, like structuralize that into two bifurcated bucket. Regular sick days, like regular cold or regular cough, right? Or maybe you have a little fever, or maybe you got like a hungover because you drank a little too much. That's like a kind of a sickness, right? And there was the serious sickness, right? Like my mom, last year, she actually had relatively painful surgery. She had a double hip replacement surgery. So that's a relatively large sickness, and she was in the hospital for like on the day off. But to recover, it took about like 2-3 weeks to be exact, right? For her to be completely back to normal. And that's about 1%, so it's not a lot, right? But still like about a year of your life away. And if you quantify all of that after adjusting for it, now we want to focus on this, right? Let me just zoom this a little bit, right? Now we're looking at just this box right here. So if you sleep away 10,000 days of your life, you have only 20,000 days, and you adjust for school, you adjust for work, you adjust for eating, you adjust for bathroom, you adjust for commuting, you adjust for sickness. You spend about like close to 20,000 days on Earth, right? And you're left with basically, 1,500 days, 1,600 days from here, right? That's equivalent to like 227 weeks, 51 months, or exactly 4 years, right? So if you think about in your lifetime, like your career, when you're wasting your time away by doing drugs and doing things that you shouldn't be doing, rather than focusing on the mission of your life, right? I think that this number reflects the truth of life, that how precious is time and how precious is our lives, right? So hopefully this is helpful. All right, so that's it for today. Respect my life calculations, if you may. I know this is a more of a conceptual, kind of an abstract video, if you may. But obviously I try to quantify it and structuralize it into a way that makes sense, right? But ultimately, people should be cherishing their time with their loved ones and doing things that are truly meaningful to them and not waste time away. And I think that's the reason why you guys are watching Things Invest, right? Because you guys understand the value of your life, that you want to be, reaching financial freedom. So once you get to that point, you get to invest your time, which is your lifetime, into things that are more meaningful to you, or enjoy things that life gives you that you deserve. So I appreciate you for listening, and sorry for me rambling. Hopefully you guys find this helpful into understanding the way I think and how I approach life at the same time. And please hit the like button, subscribe button, and bell notification, and watch out for the next coming up. Take care.